hello everyone. People, you know what grinds my gears? Besides the shitty state of the wrestling business, the horrible writing that pollutes both WWE and TNA, and the terrible programming that we as wrestling fans are subjected to on a weekly basis. No, not gonna bitch about that now. What I am gonna talk about is a major pet peeve of mine, something that irritates my very soul. And that's people using words incorrectly and out of context from their true definitions. For example, I can't stand it when people use the word literally to describe something that is not literal. Makes no sense. But, seeing as how today's Rebooking Wrestlemania countdown is going to be centered around WrestleMania 25, which the WWE insisted on calling the 25th anniversary of WrestleMania, I thought I would lend Vince McMahon a helping hand and using this handy dictionary and show him the true meaning of the word anniversary, because I don't think he entirely knows what it means. So let's go. Okay. Anniversary. The yearly recurrence of the date of a specific event or a commemoration or celebration of said event. Now, given that definition, how can WrestleMania 25 be the 25th anniversary of WrestleMania? It's kind of like saying, oh, the day you were born is your first birthday, or your wedding day is the first anniversary of your marriage. The first WrestleMania cannot commemorate or celebrate itself, okay? If we're talking about annual celebrations here, the true 25th anniversary of WrestleMania would have been WrestleMania 26. Why Vince opted to call WrestleMania 25 the 25th anniversary of WrestleMania, I have no idea. My guess is it's something that he heard, he thought it sounded cool, so he insisted on having his commentators say it at least 1,000 times over the course of a year. Now, Vince tends to do that, whenever he thinks something sounds cool, he'll pound it into your goddamn skull, but it doesn't sound cool, Vince. It doesn't make you sound important. It just makes you sound stupid. Like spelling core with 2 R's, making Santino a tag team champion, or putting Jerry Lawler in the pay-per-view World Heavyweight title match. Those things don't make you look very intelligent. It just makes you look like a big dumb fuck. Vince, pick up a dictionary or hit dictionary.com, whichever, and figure out how to use the fucking word anniversary. Dumbass. That is correct. Spots 13 and 12 will both revolve around WrestleMania 25 here on the Rebooking WrestleMania countdown. And 25 overall was one that I felt, it was bashed heavily when it first happened. And while I won't say that it was a terrible show, it was the weakest WrestleMania in a while. A lot of the card was just take it or leave it, except for, obviously, Shawn Michaels and Undertaker. That match was very good, universally praised. I thought the main events were weak. The undercard was somewhat uneventful. It was just a very blasé show, and it kind of broke the chain of good WrestleManias, because we'd had 19, which I thought was the last truly great WrestleMania that blew my socks off. WrestleMania 20, which was good. 21, which was a couple mistakes away from being one of the best, I think. 22 was way better than it had any right to be, given the piss-poor build-up, but it was still a pretty solid show. 23 was good. 24 was very good, especially with the retirement angle. So we'd had a string of pretty solid WrestleManias. And then this one broke the chain. Just not a very special show, aside from Shawn and The Undertaker. And again, that was just something that they kind of lucked into. The feud itself was nowhere near as good as it had been in 97, but they just happened to have a very good match. But I had a lot of problems with the show, and 2 of those problems will take spots here on the countdown. Number 13. Where the hell was Stone Cold Steve Austin? And I know he was in the Hall of Fame segment. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame the night before the show. But I felt like this show's in Houston, Texas. They're going to go nuts for Austin. Why didn't they have a bigger plan for him? Namely, in the Jericho Hall of Fame storyline. Before they announced that Jericho was going to be facing Steamboat, Piper, and Snuka, which I really didn't like that match on paper. I would have preferred it if it were Jericho and Snuka one-on-one. Because making it a 3-on-1 handicap match just seemed uneventful compared to what was a pretty good build-up up to that point. But one of the possibilities I thought of where they could take this Hall of Fame angle was to have Jericho face Austin, because Austin was being inducted into the Hall of Fame. And if Jericho's running down the Hall of Famers, wouldn't the Texas Rattlesnake be offended? So, whatever. But, okay, let's assume Austin couldn't wrestle. Okay, that's fine. Because of his neck and everything, I understand. That's out of their control. But there was still plenty of room to use him in the storyline, especially after the match when Jericho won. He got knocked out by Mickey Rourke, which I thought was a waste. The whole storyline just felt like, wow, all that just so he could get knocked out by Mickey Rourke? Who's that benefit? Where's the entertainment factor in that? Where's the significance there? I don't know. It just was uneventful to me. But you had Steve Austin, who was being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and if Jericho's running these guys down hard and pissing on Flair and Steamboat and Piper and Snuka, why didn't Austin come out? Why didn't Austin come out, get in his face, and say fuck you? Well, you can't say fuck you, but basically just help the other legends put Jericho in his place. And Mickey Rourke can get a shot in too, but I just felt like this storyline was calling for Steve Austin, especially considering the setting of this WrestleMania and the circumstances of Austin being put into the Hall of Fame. And I don't know if that idea was presented and just rejected, or it never crossed their minds. I have no idea, but it felt like a missed opportunity. And it would have been a great way to utilize Stone Cold Steve Austin at this WrestleMania, aside from the usual, glass breaks, storms down to the ring, drinks some beers, flips people off, and leaves. And Austin's character, especially in later years, became very repetitive with that. He had a T-shirt that said, "Arrive, raise hell, and leave." And I'm thinking, yeah, that's pretty much all you do now, because you're the most predictable guy on the show. Literally, he just does the same thing over and over and over and over again. A lot of his segments, especially in a post-wrestling career, were just very interchangeable and very similar, as opposed to what he was in 96, 97, 98, where he was very unpredictable and very exciting to watch. But whatever. Yeah, there was plenty of room to do something with Austin and Jericho here, whether it be a match or Austin's involvement in the match. Whatever. They didn't do it. It's a shame, but whatever. And spot number 12, we'll go to the handling of the main event. Triple H versus Randy Orton, which a lot of the hatred towards WrestleMania 25 is geared towards this match, because this match was a disaster. Bombed horribly. It was a bore fest of almost Superman Returns-esque levels. It was that boring. But I'll go a step further and say that the match was fucked before it even started. The setup for the match was so terrible. You can't establish Randy Orton as a heel by going after the McMahons, because for the better part of a decade up to that point, the McMahons had been established as horrible people that manipulate, control people, screw with their employees' lives, fire people for no reason. And it's like, I really have a hard time feeling sorry for them when you've spent a decade convincing me that they're terrible people, that these characters are just very unsavory personalities. And it really didn't work for me that, okay, Orton punted Vince in the head after Vince was about to fire him for no reason. And I'm thinking, dude, 98 people would have cheered Austin for that. And he's justified. It's like, what? Vince is on this power trip and he's just fucking firing people for no reason. And Orton finally stepped up and said, fuck you. Who's the bad guy there? And a lot of the things they did in the build-up just didn't come off well. The home invasion angle was so hokey and so fake in the way it was presented. Compare that to the Austin Pillman home invasion, which felt real and was executed very, very well, and it felt like something that was actually happening, as opposed to the Triple H and Randy Orton one, which felt like a bad cutscene from a bad movie. And then we get to the Raw before WrestleMania. Vince and Shane come back and help Triple H beat up Legacy, which okay, assuming that the McMahon thing actually worked at establishing Orton as a heel, it was completely undone by the fact that they came back on Raw. So it was like, well, okay, who cares? They're fine now. And, they beat up Ted and Cody, who are like Bebop and Rocksteady anyway, so that doesn't matter. You want to know why they didn't get over as part of Legacy? It's because they had the Bebop and Rocksteady syndrome of just being dumb, idiotic henchmen that can't do anything right, and are basically just there to get their asses kicked. But that happened. Triple H kicked Orton's ass, and that was the last visual on Raw. So going into WrestleMania, it just felt like, well, Triple H has already gotten his revenge, so who cares? I mean, why should I give a damn? He's already bested Orton. It doesn't matter. The only thing that they could do that would be interesting would be if Orton won, which, yeah, that wasn't going to happen. And they also had that stipulation of where if Triple H gets disqualified, he loses the title, which made no sense, first of all, because Vince was on his side. And you mean to tell me that Vince can't overrule Vicky Guerrero's decisions? I mean, you kind of run the company, Vince. Whatever. But that stipulation basically made the match tell the story of, okay, there's a restriction of how bad Triple H can beat up Randy Orton, because basically the entire match, one of the reasons it was so boring is that it was just a one-sided, very long one-sided fight. Triple H basically dominated, and by the time the match was over, he gave the pedigree to a corpse. And just a very dull match, horrible match, and it'll go down as one of the worst WrestleMania main events. And that's not it wasn't the first time something like that happened to Triple H in a WrestleMania main event, which that will definitely come up later in this countdown, especially when we get into the top 10. But yeah, I know this is a rebooking WrestleMania countdown, but I really don't know what else to put in this spot. To me, Triple H and Randy Orton was 4 years too late. If this match was going to happen at Mania for a world title, it should have been at 21, but a ill-advised and horribly executed Randy Orton face turn ruined that. I wouldn't give the main event spot to the three-way because the build-up for that one was even worse. It was atrocious. And that one, I mean, this stupid love triangle with Edge, Big Show, and Vicky. And there was no payoff to it because she didn't pick a side during the match, so it felt even more pointless. I don't blame Edge, Big Show, or even Cena, who I'm very critical of. I don't blame any of them for that match. That was just a horrible writing, ruined that match. So I wouldn't have that main event. And I can't think of a situation or a way to book it that would have made Orton and Triple H an interesting match. I just can't do it, especially with Triple H as the face, or Triple H in it at all. I can't stand to watch Triple H anymore. He bores the fuck out of me. He's overexposed and boring. He's been gone almost a year. At this point, as I'm filming this, he's been gone almost a year. And I'm sitting there thinking, I don't miss him. Is he going to make it to Mania 27? Is he not? I don't care. I hope not. Because take a backstage role and have fun with that, man. Because I don't want you back on my TV. But I guess the only option to really go with would have been to just have Undertaker and Shawn Michaels close out this pay-per-view. It was the best match. It was the most exciting thing on the card. The only thing on the card that was, somewhat interesting. And, I've heard Triple H and Orton, the excuse that's given for that match being bad is that, they couldn't follow Shawn and Undertaker. Which, to that I say, well, Savage and Steamboat happened at Mania 3. At the time was said to be the greatest match of all time. Hogan and Andre followed it. They still gave the fans something special and a big moment in wrestling history. It wasn't better than Savage and Steamboat, but they were able to follow it. WrestleMania 10, Bret and Yoko, they followed the ladder match. The show still ended with a standing ovation for Bret winning the title. It delivered. The main event doesn't have to be better than everything that came before it, but it does have to be justified in its spot. And Orton and Triple H was not justified at being in that spot. If you can't follow what came before you, and if you're going to give a lackluster ending to the show, then you shouldn't be the ending to the show. I'm sorry. It's just how I feel.